Alright, in this video we will see how to create order management system for the restaurant. Here we will have three entities. One, we would be adding customer. Two, we would be adding restaurant. Three, we would be adding foods. So let me just show you. So this is the place for adding customer. This is the place for adding restaurant. This is the place for adding food. Let me add one customer. Name, email and phone. I'm entering it and it is getting displayed over here. Let me add one more customer. And now I'm going to add a restaurant which is in Andheri. Click on save restaurant. Then I'm adding another restaurant which is C, which is in Churchgate. Click on save restaurant. Now you have two restaurant and two customer, and in this restaurant what are the foods available? So let's say pizza is available, which is of 250 rupees and which is available in Andheri branch. Same way I have burger available, the price is 150 rupees and it's available on Churchgate. You see this is getting populated from this inserted data. Likewise, if I add one more restaurant and I'll make this D and the branch name is Dombivli and save. And now once you save, you see the Dombivli option is available. Let's add one more food and price is 50 and it's available on the recently added, which is third branch. So now we have the option of adding customer, food and restaurant. The fourth thing is we can make order. So you can see we can make order. Now let's say a customer has come. Now I'm going to generate a bill for this. So let's say a customer named Vishal, which you have entered over here, has come to the restaurant. Which restaurant? UI Monk Hub C, and he has ordered 3 burger. You can see the total price is getting populated. 150 into 3 is 450 rupees, and I'm just clicking on plus. And as I click on plus, you see the item, which is he has purchased 3 items and the cost is 450 rupees, and he has ordered 2 pizza also, and I'm adding it again. So now if I add, now you see the total item is now 5, and based on the total you see the subtotal is 950. Now I'm going to place an order. Once I place an order, you will see those data would get, you see those data got populated. The Vishal, the name, the customer name Vishal has come to the UI Monk Hub C, which is third branch or second branch, and he has ordered 3 pizza. Let me just zoom in. He has ordered 3 pizza and 2 burger, and the total cost is 150. Same way, if I order one more pizza, one more customer has come. You can see UI Monk. UI Monk has come, and he is in the restaurant D, and he has ordered 5 cokes and 2 burger. The total amount is, the total item is 7 and the total amount is 550. Click on save. Now you will see those data got added. Now total we have 2 customer, and the total amount that we can check is on the dashboard top section area. So you see the total order so far made is 2, and the total customer so far has come to the restaurant is 2, and the most ordered food, the most popular food is Coke, and the total earning so far is 1600. Let me add one more customer and we'll call it as Ramesh, and some phone number and email address you are saving it. Now we have saved those, and the fourth customer has come, Ramesh, to our restaurant, and he has ordered. Now the Coke is the top most popular food. Let me just make it to like for the example, a person has purchased 10 burger. Now you see burger is 2 and 2. As of now the total quantity of sold burger is 4, and if I make it will be 14. Now click place order. Once the order is placed, you will see those getting populated over here, and in the dashboard now the the most popular food is burger, and the most total earning is 4100. So you can see the summary on the top bar and the order that is made on this particular table. So this is what we are going to create. So here the major thing that we are going to learn is one-to-many relationship. So this one restaurant can have many food and many-to-many relationship. That means one order can be from many restaurant, one order can have many foods, one order can have many food, and one order can be from many customers. So this is many to many relationship example, and this is one to many relationship example. And coming back to our series, this playlist is particularly made for MERN. So I am a PHP Laravel developer, and I do occasionally work on WordPress customization and Laravel sometimes. Now I want to learn MERN. So my challenge was to completely switch from PHP to MERN. So in that case, I'm completely neglecting the React for now. I'm just learning the backend related stuff, which is in MERN. We have MongoDB, leave the React for now, and then we have Express and Node.js. I am creating a playlist. It would be easy for someone who want to grasp the knowledge of backend without getting into front end. So that's my goal. So I have created a playlist. So this playlist is completely recommended for such people who is interested in learning MERN without front end, without React. Now, starting with this lecture, I have created a basic API, and then we have created some CRUD operations. So these are CRUD operations. These CRUD operations are in this video we will be using AI suggestion. Like if I type Express, Express will automatically include all the package. If I complete create a function, it will automatically create for me. So now this is easy for us, so that I have purposely purchased GitHub Copilot to do the AI suggestion. But these three videos which I have made, these CRUD operations are not AI suggestion based. So I would be writing everything from scratch. So if you are interested, I would recommend you to start from zero. This is a basic API, and then we will be creating CRUD operation without AI suggestion, and then we'll be diving into one-to-many relationship. And now we are in the place where we have understood one CRUD operation, we have understood basic API creation, we have understood one-to-many relationship, and now in this video you will learn many-to-many relationship. So in case if you are interested, follow from the episode 1. That's what I would suggest. And then in this video we will see how to create everything from scratch. We will be creating an MVC pattern. So you can see these folders you will be creating completely from scratch. So you will be creating some 5 routes, you will be creating 4 models, you will be creating 5 controllers, you will be creating database connection with this config, and you will be adding those static HTML files here, so that you can do this with the help of JavaScript. And we will be completely writing everything from scratch, and this is a JavaScript file which we will be creating everything from scratch. It has about 600 lines of code. You learn line by line what everything does to make this one many-to-many relationship work. So this is specifically dedicated for restaurant management, restaurant food and order management. Without wasting time, let's get into the code. Now the first thing that we have to do is we have to create the collection. So I'll get into clusters and click on browse collection, and let's create a database called order management. Click on plus, order management DB, and let the collection be restaurant or customers. Click on create, and that is enough, and rest of the part we'll take care of from the Visual Studio Code. So let's open a new folder. So this folder will be completely blank. So order management, click on, I have created a folder order management on the desktop. I'm opening it. Now it just have one HTML, so that HTML is what actually see over here. It will do no harm to keep it in our folder. Now let's initialize our node in this folder. So I have opened the terminal by pressing Ctrl backtick and npm init, which will create a package.json file for this folder, and it will ask some question. Just click on enter and your package.json is ready. Over here, after that, I need some packages, npm packages, npm I for install. I need express, mongoose, node-mon, and .env. So these are the minimum packages that we require to run this application. And once it got once it got installed, you will find the package.json will have a section called dependencies, and on this dependency you will find the list of packages that we have installed with the version number. Now it is asking to set the entry point. I'm going to set the entry point as server.js. So let's create a server.js file where we will start our server. So to start the server, we need a express, and we need the instance of app, and after that what we need is we need to use a listen function, and it will accept two parameter. One parameter is the port number, the other parameter is the callback function. So now to run this, you just need to type node server.js, node with the file name or the entry point, and once your server is running, you will see this message: server is running on port 3000. Yes, that works. Now let's use a basic route to check our application on the browser. So again, this callback function will have a request and response, and I want to send the response as hello world. Now to restart, we have to restart the server to check the changes. After you make any changes, you have to restart the server. So a node server.js. Now your server is ready. When I type localhost 3000, and you will see the text hello world. Now what if I make some modification and click on save and refresh the page? It won't work because every time you have to kill your server and restart the server. So for that we have a workaround, and that's called node-mon, and the script that it has to run is npm, oh I'm sorry, it should be dev. Here it's node-mon server.js. So what it will do is, if I type npm run dev, in place of dev, this code would get executed. If we click enter, so the reason for using this package is, if I click on save, on each save your server would get restarted. So now if I hit send request again, you will see hello world 2, and if I make some changes 3 4 and click on save, Ctrl S, and if I refresh the page, you see the changes got reflected. That's the purpose of having node-mon. Now let's work on database configuration. So we need a config file, and inside config we will have db.js. Now we are going to connect our application with the database. So for that we need mongoose, and we'll create a new function, and that function will be responsible whenever I call this function. This function would connect your application with the DB. So we don't need these values. And this is the bare minimum. Now you need a .env folder, because that's how you have to structure. So I'll just explain you what .env does is, I'm creating a new file .env, and here we'll initialize our MongoDB URL. So let me get it from my previous work. So I'm setting port and I'm setting Mongo URI, and here we just need to change the database, and we have named it as order management DB, and here you have to set your password, here you have to set your username. I'm showing this because after this video ends I'll change the password, but it should be kept as secret. So now to call this .env in this folder, you have to call a package called .env, and you have to use the config function. Now with this process.env these two are keywords, and this is the variable name which you have mentioned it over here, and you just have to replace it. And to wherever you need database connection, you just have to call this function, and that function will execute this db. Now there is a thing that you have to remember: whenever you create a new file and you are going to use a function that would be useful for the other file that you would be calling. Here in this case I'll call this dv in the folder in this file, and const, but this dv I won't be able to access it until and unless I am exporting it. So module.export is a keyword again. You have to export the function to use it in any other file. So I'm going to use it here, and now if I run the server, you should see a simple message saying that order connector connect.db is not a function. It says config on db.js, yes. So it's module, not mongoose. Module.export, and now you see database is connected, and now there is a way that you have to organize this server.js or your entry point. First thing, initialization, and then all the config related functions should come, and then all the connection related functions should come, then middleware related code should come, middleware, then routes related, then server related. So we have defined server over here, we have basic routes over here, and database connection, and let's call the .env as well, and let's install that package .env, and we have to config that .env, so .env.config over here. Now once everything is done, the next thing that you have to do is we have to set up the HTML. Now all our HTML will get into a folder called public. Inside public, let's just copy all these files, or what we do is we'll just rename this to public. So to rename this, we have to delete the old one. We'll just rename this to public. Now when I search for localhost :3000, I want to send the HTML file, which is index.html, but we cannot directly access it. For that we have to use a package called path, and this path will give you the absolute location. So path.join, this directory name will give you the absolute URL. Since we are in the desktop, from desktop till your application, you'll get the path. So that is this directory name would does, and we have to specify on which folder it is there. It's inside public folder, and what file to choose. Now if I refresh it, okay, you see that's what we got. This is the absolute URL, but we are sending the response. We have to send the file, not. So we have got the absolute URL till here. So this is the absolute URL, and this is the public folder that we have attached, and this is the HTML. And I'm not, previously I was sending the file name, now I will be sending the actual file. So this is the actual file without CSS. So we are just sending the file, but we are not sending the required CSS and JS. For that, what we have to tell to our MongoDB or the Node.js application is what it should do. It should simply call the middleware, So whenever you see app.use, it's actually a middleware. So there is a middleware called express.static, which will simply set your folder. So what this middleware would do is, let's say all your related CSS and JS are in one folder. Usually it would be inside one folder, which is public folder, and I am setting that location with this express.static. So whenever the response, now we have sent the request through this URL, and the server has responded with a file which is index.html, but the server only gave the index.html, but index.html comes up with multiple CSS and multiple JS. Now server didn't know where to look for the attached the required CSS and the required JS of this index folder. I am explicitly saying to the server that whenever you are looking for CSS and JS, just look into this folder which is public. So now in this case, if I refresh, you will get all the CSS and required JS. That's how we set our base location for HTML file, CSS file and JS file with the help of middleware. Now that is done, the next thing, we can directly create the customer model. Now to set the customer model, we need to create a new folder and call it as model. Inside model, we'll just create a file, customer model.js. Inside customer model.js, we need to create a schema. So for that, we need a mongoose package, and we'll just name it as customer schema. And what all things that we need a name that should be of type string, and the required, we don't need required, we'll just make this as type string, or we can have it, it won't do any harm to us. The second thing is, what all things are there, the email, and what is the third thing, we have phone. And once this schema, you have defined the schema, now I have to attach this schema to the table, or here in this case it's collection. Now to attach the schema to the collection, we have to use we need to use a function called mongoose dot model dot, this is the table name and this is the schema that we have attached, and we have to export it. Module dot exports. Now that's how we set the model. Once the model is set, now we need to create the routes. So let's create a routes folder, and inside routes folder we will say customer.js or customer routes.js, and here whenever we use routes, so let's go how the express would do. So whenever I search localhost /3000 / customer, I want a particular route to take care of this. So for that, we will just first define the route, saying whenever there is a request for customers, what you have to do is look into this folder, which is look into this folder called routes. Inside routes, you will find customer routes, and we have created an instance of this. Now what we have to do is, inside customer, I'm saying whenever there is a request for this customer for this URL, I want this route to take care of this. And to setting up route, we would be using middleware. So we are using middleware to set the route, and this customer routes, you will get it in the module.export. So now we need to call the express, and we need to set the router. We definitely don't need a model for now, we'll use it in the controller. And once, so we have set the route. Now with this route, and when there is a request, we need to set the callback function, and that callback function will simply send customer route. So when I click customer, you will get the response from customer route. So it is simple. Whenever someone search for customer in the extra Node.js application, will send it to this file, which is routes folder, and I am saying use the router, or you can just simply name it as router for your understanding. And this router will take care of get, post, put, delete method responsible for doing CRUD operation. Now we'll just simply export the router. Now this would work. Now this is not the professional way. What usually happens is the route will again send the request to the controller. Controller will understand whether it requires interaction with database. If it requires interaction with database, it will get the values of the database and send the response in the controller, from the controller, not from the routes. So now we need controller. We'll create what controller folder, and inside controller folder we will have customer controller.js, and inside controller customer controller, what we do is we simply pass this request to this file, and this is the function, and we'll simply call this function as get all customers. So we have to export it, exports dot. Now we have to link this route folder with this customer. For that we have to call the customer folder, customer controller folder, customer controller, which we have got it. Now we have to mention it in this file. Look for get all customer function, and get all function customer will simply say customer controller. Now if I hit, the server.js will send the customer related route to this customer routes, and it will check whether it is get, post, delete, or put. And now it is get request, and get request is handled by the controller. This controller has a function get all customer, and inside this get all customer you will see this code in action. If I click enter, you will see customer controller is working. So that's how the MVC flow is. I hope I have made it clear. Now the next thing is, we don't need this for now, we can work on the CRUD operation. So for that we have to understand the HTML. If I click here on the index.html, we need to look for customers, customers, this is food. Yeah, we have customers here. So we have a form, we have not let me just verify this. Cool, this is the HTML. Now we have not made this, we have to make this input type submit, and we have to surround this inside a form. And localhost :3000, and if you hit, so this is your form, and this is your for now. Let's just check whether we are able to properly get your form filled. This is your customer. So let's open the JavaScript and let's call the form. We have not given any ID to our form. We can give our ID and call it as customer form, and we'll call it from the JavaScript document const customer form equal to document query selector by ID, and I'm saying add listener, which is submit. Whenever someone clicks on submit, what should happen? The page should not load, so for that e.prevent default. That's first thing. The second thing is we need to fetch these input field values, so we have to identify them with the ID equal to customer name. So this is customer name, then we have customer email, then we have customer phone. So we have to gather these: name, email and phone. Let's get these, and we need to query them from the JavaScript query selector. So the first one is we need name, we'll save it, which is input field. The second one is we need email, and the third one is customer phone. Now we can get these value. We need to create an object, so we'll call it as customer form data, and we'll set the key value. We'll simply set name colon, and all these values are set, and on submit I'm going to check whether we are able to fetch the created object. In the console, let's try name some random email and phone. If I click on save customer, require is not defined. Where? Okay, the first line. Some random value, click on, so it could not fetch the value of null. Maybe we have skipped the ID. We have mentioned, we have identified these with an ID, and click on save, and yes, we are able to get those value. Now what we need to do is we need to send these value to a endpoint, and the endpoint is customer. So let's create an URL const customer endpoint, and we need to send this form data to that endpoint. Fetch API, we need to call the fetch API, and we need to use customer endpoint as a first parameter, and the second parameter is what all data that we have to send and what method we have to send. The method we need to send is post, and we are sending what type of data. We are sending JSON data, and what data are we sending? We are sending the customer form data. Now this is in JavaScript object. We have to convert it into JSON so that we can send our request from the browser to the server. For that we have to convert it into JSON. So this JSON.stringify will convert your JavaScript object into your JSON value. So once that is set, we can check that we are able to send the request through the network tab. So if I click save, if I click on customer, so this is the request that is sent, and on the payload what all data that we are sending, name, email and phone, we are sending it, and as of now we don't have any response because we have not created the route. Now as I said, whenever a request is sent to the customer, and server.js will send it to the custom routes, and it will check whether the request is there or not. Now we are sending the request method as post, but there is no post method defined. We have to define the post method, and create customer is a function that is going to take care, and in over here create customer. Now we would get this request. To get this request, your server.js should have a middleware, and that middleware is called JSON. So here you have to understand, you are sending your JavaScript object to the server in the form of JSON, and server will send the value or the response in the JSON format, but your browser will not understand the JSON value. What it would do is it would convert the JSON value into JavaScript object, and for that we need a function called, we have used json.stringify, and now we will use json.parse. Now we don't have to explicitly use json.parse. This middleware will take care of it. It will convert your response, which is in JSON format, and it will convert it into JavaScript object with the help of json.parse. So for that we are using this middleware. Now the next thing is, we need to say whether we are able to receive the response or not. Now we can receive the request value. So these payload, we can access it with the help of, first we'll create an object and we'll call it as customer data, and this is an object. So we have received name, phone and email, and we will simply send this customer data. This response or send will accept only JSON, object. Now if I refresh it, previously it was showing error. Now this time you should get a success message. We didn't get any success message. Cannot post. So actually, let's say in the route, now you see the URL is a problem. Now here we are using customer in the middleware, but in the JavaScript we are using customers. Let's fill the value, click on save. Now you see you got the response. Let's see what response that we got. We got the response. So this is the request that we have set. We are able to receive the request, so that's why we are outputting it. Now we have to save our received value into the database. So to do that, we need to call the model const customer model, and we have this inside model folder. Now this is database operation, so it should be async. We can simply call this customer dot we'll create a new object and we'll store it into a into an instance called new customer. We have created a new object, and we are going to pass that object as an argument. Now we would be saving it, and this should be awaited. Usually these things should be surrounded into try catch. So if we got any error, we would know that the data did not sent to the database or saved to the database. So if the data is not sent, then you will get the error message. If it was successful, then we have to send a message, customer created successfully. We don't need the second parameter. Now if everything goes well, you should see the success message, customer created successfully, as the response. In the response, okay, we are simply, yeah, this is not even getting executed because this line got interrupted. This line interrupted the next line execution. So let's add one more time. Click on save and check the response. Customer saved successfully. That means our data got saved into the collection. Now the next thing is we need to use the fetch operation to fill this area. So in the HTML we don't need this edit button for now. We'll simply keep delete. Now what we need, let's just call this let's just uniquely define this table with an ID called customer table, and we have to initialize it. This is customer table, or what we can do is we'll use a query selector which is ID, because we would be using tbody, customer table tbody. Now we need to send the fetch query. Actually what happened is we have missed one thing, which is after getting the response as an object, you see message, we have to display it in the front end. So first we have to convert this into JavaScript object. Then once we receive the data, we have to send it into the alert message. So that's how we do it. Now let's do the next fetch operation, which is, and once the data is sent, you have to display customer data. Let's define the customer data, and again we need to send the fetch request. And this time we don't need any second parameter for letting know what is the method, what is the type of data, and what data are we sending. If I refresh the page, you should see a fetch request that is being sent only if we call this function. If I refresh, you'll see a fetch request localhost style. I don't see any fetch request. So this is a function. Okay, it's not working because there is some random character in the middle. And now you should see the fetch request. You can see on page load. If I am reloading the page, you should see the fetch request, which is just giving the text customer controller is working. It is because in the customer route, the get request which we have defined is simply sending the response this, but we don't need this. We need a complete fetch operation. So this is going to be a async function, and over here we need to call our customer and use the find method to get all values, and we'll store it all customer data, which should be await, and we'll send this response dot send, and if I refresh the page, a fetch request would get sent and it would receive all the data that is there in the table. Now we can access this received data from the JavaScript. First, it is in the JSON format. Now we need to convert it into JavaScript object, and after converting it into JavaScript object, I want to display it in the form of, let's just make, I just want to display it in the form of table. So this way. So now with this datas dot for each, so we can access individual data now. Now we need to get the tbody dot inner HTML. We need to concatenate it properly, and let's make sure the HTML is similar. So for that we'll simply copy the HTML, this HTML, we'll cut this and replace it over here, and over here this is name, so we will get this from this parameter dot name. So this is how we destructure our object key value pair, and this is going to be email, and this is going to be phone, and we know that we need to pass on click function, and the on click function will have the unique ID. Now you see these are the proper value from the database, and now the delete should have the unique ID. Now we need to create this delete ID. Again it should send a request, fetch request, and that fetch request will simply pass this as a fetch request. We need to send the first thing, after we need to create an object, so delete ID. So instead of this, what we can do is we can send our value through the parameter. So with the help of customer endpoint, so the customer endpoint URL is this, followed by /id, and if we are able to receive this, so to receive we need to get add the delete method, delete customer, and in the controller first we just have to understand whether we are able to receive the I think if everything goes smooth, let's just see whether we are able to receive the ID or not. Request.body, response.send will simply send the request.body.id. So if I click on it, a request should get sent, and cannot put delete /customer/id. Now what we have to do is, if I click on this, a request would get sent to this URL, and in the routes we have to define that properly, and we should say that this route would be expecting an ID. So this ID is important, and we are sending it as a not as a body. So now the difference between these two fetch API is, first one we were sending it inside request body, so we are sending it inside body, but now we are sending the ID through the parameter. We are sending the value or the content, so here it was sending our value to through the body. Here we are sending it as parameter. So we are telling to the Node.js application this delete route would expect a parameter, and in the controller we'll use, previously we were using request.body, now we would be using request.parameter, and we are storing it into a constants, and now everything goes smooth. If I click, we'll receive the message from the that means we are able to let me just send the request again, and as a response we have received the ID. So that means this is working. Now the next thing is we need to call the model and delete it. We just need to pass the parameter ID, that's it. Find by ID and delete it, and in the message just say deleted successfully. And once it gets deleted, in the script.js you want to reload this HTML to check and make sure it's you have properly used async and await. In the controller, this is async function because we are interacting with database, and this should be await. So let's delete the second one, customer deleted successfully, and the thing is it got reappended. So before the fetch API that displays the value in the script, we need to delete the older values which is actually there on the T body. Now if I refresh, you see there is only, if I refresh it, delete this again, there is no data. Okay, after clicking on delete, maybe this could be the issue, I don't. Okay, you should not, we should assign, you should not concatenate, you should simply assign it. That could be the issue. Let's try one more time. Let me fill this value, customer created. Okay, let me fill this value again, and let me fill this value again. Okay, on every customer save, the form is not getting resetted. We need to check the post. So here we are submitting it, get the form and reset it. And now if you see, if I add one more value, click on save, you should see the form would get resetted. Form values are blank. So let me delete this. Now we have 4 values, it should be 3 now. If it is 3 value, it should be 2 now. So that the error was previously we were concatenating it, but we should not concatenate, we should simply assign it to blank. So this is how the customer CRUD is created. Now similarly we have to do the same process for the restaurant. So let me quickly do that. I don't think we would require more explanation on this. I'll just go step by step. First thing, we need a model. So in the model we need restaurant model.js. In the restaurant model.js we need to call the mongoose, and then we need to create a schema, and this schema will first expect name, type as string required, and the second, this is restaurant name, and the second one is location. We are going to save only these 2 values, name, where is it, name and location. Cool. Now we need to attach our schema. It's not customer schema, this is restaurant schema. We need to attach a schema with our model, so simply restaurant.model, or we can say we can make this as model.exports.restaurant, or we can simply write it this way, its module. Cool. Your restaurant schema is attached to the restaurant model now, or a collection. The next thing is routes. Over here we need to define, whenever there is a request sent for restaurant, what file it should take care of. It should take care of restaurant route. The restaurant routes is responsible for dealing with all the routes related to this URL. So in the routes folder, where is the routes? We need to create a new file, customer routes.js, and here we need router. For that we need to install a package called Express. Again, this Express has router, and inside router we need to export that module.export router, and then we a simple get request router.get. We need to create a controller so that this request can be sent to that controller, and a new file called restaurant controller.js. We need to call that over here, const restaurant controller, and we are properly connecting our controller to the route with the help of // and in this place we need to give the controller name, and get all controller is the function that is responsible for now we need to initialize this function exports dot response dot send, and if I search for restaurant, and in the server.js, okay, it should not be, it should be this restaurant route. Refresh it. This request is handled by routes, and this routes is sending the request to controller, and controller is sending the response. That means this MVC is working fine. The same way, now it's time for the object creation from this value, from these fields. Now let's just remove all the customer related. Here on this model, where is the restaurant? We need to give the button input type submit, and we need to surround these inside a form, and we need to uniquely identify this form with the ID. We'll call it as RESTAU restaurant form. I'll just format this, and we can access this restaurant form from the JavaScript. I'll just copy this and all the fields should be uniquely identified. So ID, restaurant name, and this is restaurant location. Now we need to properly initialize these inside the JavaScript. So document.query selector, this is for restaurant location input field, and this is for restaurant name input field. Now when I click on submit, add event listener, I don't want the form to get reloaded, so event dot prevent default. Now we need to create the object const restaurant form data, and name of the restaurant, location of the restaurant, and we would send the fetch request, and we'll send the content type JSON data, and we would receive the value. I will send it in the alert message. Now we need to create the post route. Post create restaurant is the function that is going to take care of it, and this create restaurant has to talk to the model. So to talk to the model, we have to first call that model in the controller const restaurant, its model folder, and now what do we need? We need to create an instance. We need to first get the data, restaurant data, and we'll store this into a object which is name and location, and we need to create a new restaurant and create an instance of model, and as an argument we need to pass the restaurant data, and we need to call the save function to save it into the database, and it should be await, and this function should be async, and these things should be surrounded into try catch, but for now I'm skipping it. This would work. Now the response has to be sent, response dot data, and saying restaurant created successfully. Now if everything goes well, restaurant name UI Monk Hub, which is in Dombivli, and let's see whether we are able to properly send the response. Send the response. Actually there seems to be an error 1. I hope I have saved everything. Response will simply make this as change the endpoint, which is restaurant, and this can be a restaurant endpoint, and we can make this simply restaurant endpoint, and make sure your HTML is properly connected. Yes, and on click, let's just try an alert message, hello. Refresh it, try sending, click on save. Yes, it's working. And restaurant also saved successfully. Let's just name this as UI Monk Hub, and it's in Dadar. Click on save. A response is sent, and we are sending name and location, and as a response it got saved. Cool, that means it's working perfectly as we thought. And also on submit, I want the form to get reset dot reset, and display all restaurant data. Let's also on page load also it should get called. Let's define the restaurant data. Simply we need to send the fetch request to this endpoint, and we would be receiving the list. So in the controller we need to call the model dot find, and we need to store this into a variable all restaurant data, and we need to send this would be in the form of object, and we would send this. On page load you should see a restaurant is sent. On page load we are sending a restaurant request, and we are fetching all the values which is there on the database. Cool, I have added this await. Now we need to access these JSON object which we already did it over here. Let's just call this for each and use it for restaurant. Here in between we need to call this ID, uniquely identify them with the restaurant table, and this is for restaurant table, this is restaurant table t body, and we need to append this inside restaurant table, not on the customer table. And the next thing is we need to fetch these value. We don't need this edit. We need to fetch these value and add it over here, and simply actually I added phone number, but that is not needed. Now this response you can see has a name and location. We can access it with this value. So this is for individual row. To access individual row we will use data dot name, and this is for location. And if everything goes well, also let's just create on click. So you got the data is already there, that's why it's showing this way. Let me remove this, or let me comment this. So we have two of them which is already added. Now it's time for the also let's if it got fetched properly. Now it's time for the delete function we need to add a delete function. Again we are not sending it as a body, we are sending it as a parameter, just as we have done here, and then we should get the response, or we'll display it as alert. And once everything is done, we need to display the restaurant data. Now we need to set the delete method, and we should say it should expect the parameter ID, and the relevant function that it should take care of is delete restaurant. And now exports dot, we need to export that function so that we can access it in the routes folder. We will be getting the parameter, and we have named it as ID because we are sending it as an ID. Okay, we have defined it as ID, so we are accessing it over here, request.param.id, and we are storing it into a variable, and we are passing that variable into this function which is responsible for deleting the record. And once this got deleted, we are sending the responses in the form of JSON, and it says restaurant deleted successfully. And now if everything goes right, if I click on delete, you should get a message, and that row is not gone because on fetch, like how we have previously done on fetch, it's not clearing it. On fetch, where is the fetch operation? Fetch operation is here, and we have to make this blank. So if I refresh it, it's gone. Let's add one more thing, which is UI monk hub, which is in Dombivli. Click on save restaurant, a new restaurant got added. Let's add one more UI monk hub, which is in Ghatkoper. Click on save restaurant, another restaurant got added. And if I want to delete the other, you see restaurant got deleted, and that row should get disappear. Cool. Now similarly we have to do it for the food restaurant, but here there is relationship. Previously this was standalone table, but this food table requires the help of a restaurant. So it's like one-to-many relationship, because one restaurant can have many foods. So that's why it's one-to-many. So we are going to tackle this in a different way. The different way will be only on the model creation. Once we create model, and that this drop down will be actually what data that we have inserted on the restaurant, that we would fetch it and display it over here. If I click on save, this data, this particular data table will have name of the food, price of the food, and the restaurant. It will not store the restaurant. It will not store what? It will not store the restaurant name. Instead, it will store the restaurant ID. So these rows will have an ID. If you have noticed, when I sent the response from the server, it was in the form of object, and inside object there were these fields: name, location. Along with that there would be one unique ID, and that ID we will use it as a value over here to save it into the food folder. That's what we are going to see, one-to-many relationship. Alright, now the product is about, now the entity is about food. We are going to store name, price, and restaurant. Restaurant will be coming from this relationship, and let's create a model. And the first thing, we need to create a food model, and let's name it as food model.js. And over here we need to call the mongoose, and we need to create schema, const schema, or you can call it as food schema. And here in the food schema, what all things that we need name, which is of type string. We can make it required. And the second thing is what? Price. And the third thing is we need restaurant ID. And this would be of type mongoose dot schema dot type dot object ID, and we need to refer it to the model ref to the restaurant model, restaurant collection. Now in the restaurant collection, you see this is the collection name. We have to properly use it over here. We are attaching our, so here in the restaurant model you will find column. Let me just show you in MongoDB for clear explanation. And our database is order management. You will find customers. In the customers, you see each row can be uniquely identified with the object ID. Object ID this one and object ID this one. So that's what I am connecting it. Now our model is ready. The next thing is we have to populate this drop down based on the restaurant that we have added. So to do that, we need to send the request, fetch request on page load. So let's say fetch restaurant name, fetch restaurant, we can name it as restaurant names. We need to give the fetch request, sending it to the restaurant endpoint, and we can concatenate, let's say with slash names. So this is the request that it would send, and over here in the restaurant controller or routes, you have to properly define it. In the routes restaurant, you have to set a get request, and we have named it as names, I believe. Take this over here. Yes, it's names plural. And get all names is a function that is going to fetch the names and going to display it for us. We need to get into controller. Then we have restaurant model, so restaurant controller, exports dot get all names. We will be receiving the request. We need to use the async function, and we will be using find method, and we are saying what all data that we need. We need ID and we need name. So what it usually means is it accepts two parameters. The first parameter is what to filter. I am saying there is no filter, display all. And the second thing is how to project, what all data that you need. I am saying I need a name, and I am saying exclude the ID. I don't want to exclude the ID, I want to include the ID, so I am saying 1. Now let's see on the fetch on the fetch request on page load, we should send the request from the browser and should respond with the names. So in the network tab, let's just refresh it, and if there is no there is a console error on the line. I think it's on our script which is showing an error. Okay, this plus is not needed. Network tab, now you see there is names. Make sure to add this function to call on page load. So in the names, I'm sending the request and I'm getting the response as ID and names. Now we have this ID. Now we need to populate this in our drop down, which is here. So get our HTML. Let me remove the unnecessary opened files so to avoid confusion. Okay, now in the HTML, here we have select restaurant, and we can give it as give a form, surround them with form, and this input type should be submit. and each of them should be uniquely identified with the ID so that we can call them. We'll name them as food name. The second one is food price. The third one is food restaurant. That's it. Now we would be fetching these values. Let's just give ID to this ID food form. In this we have food form, we have name, we have price, we have restaurant. That's it. Now what should happen? Let's just get the values. Const document dot query selector. We have form first, which is an ID actually, and then we have an input field, and then we have price, and then we have restaurant. Yes. Now what do I need? I need to get into this student restaurant, which is a select tag, input field, get this and add concatenate with these value, and here we need to add some more. We'll be getting data, so this should be this, as you see, this is returning multiple values, so we have to get the individual value using for each. And we should loop them through the option tag. Now we have our name, and here we can send the ID as a value, because in the database we will be storing the ID, not the name. Also on page load, it should have only the first value, which is select restaurant, and rest can be commented for now. On page load it should have only these values, and it should be dot inner HTML. We have to select the properties and assign the HTML to it. On page load, if everything goes smooth, that is, we don't see any option. It is directly outputting the values. Let's see why. Okay, it has just replaced the HTML. Okay, here the problem is we have to give ID. Instead of we have mistakenly given the ID to the div, we have to give it to the select tag. Now you see in the restaurant you find the added restaurant. So one more thing, this select restaurant has to be populated when we add a restaurant data. So here the fetch request, where we are sending it display restaurant data, we can call it over here. Then let's try adding another restaurant, UI Monk Hub C, and which is in Churchgate. click on save, and hopefully in the restaurant you should see UI Monk Hub C. So as you add in this restaurant, the data gets populated over here. Sorry, as you add restaurant in this field, the data gets populated in this drop down. Okay, there seems to be on page loads getting appended again. So what is happening? It is calling 2 times. The correct way to add is add the restaurant names is once we submit this restaurant form. And if I tried adding another UI Monk Hub, which is D, which is in Dombivli, click on save restaurant, you should see the drop down would get populated with D. And if you want, what we can do is in the controller, restaurant controller, you can include one more field and call it as location, and you can fetch those value in the fetch API, and in the bracket you can simply add location data also, like location. Now if I refresh, you should see name with location, restaurant name with location. Cool. Now the next step is to create the CRUD. So to create the CRUD, what all details that we need? To start, we have to create model first, and we'll call it as full model, which is we have already created. The next thing is we need to create routes. So we'll start with server.js, and the routes is food, and who is going to take care? Food route, and we need to create a new file in the routes, and we'll call it as foodroutes.js. Let's initialize that in our server.js, which is entry point. And we'll call it as food routes. In the food routes we need express const, and we need router. We need to export router, module dot export router, and then we need to define the router. We'll just define the get request for now. Get, it would simply say, oh, we should use the controller here, and let's create the controller first. We'll call this food controller. I'm going a little fast because we have already seen this twice doing it. You just need to understand the logic. We need to call the food controller. Make sure the link is correct, and here we would be calling get, sorry, we'll first create or get all foods for now, and we need to define that exports dot get all foods. We will simply send the response dot send, saying all food data, and if I type food, you got the data from the controller. That is working. Cool. Now it's time to set the HTML for the form. We have set the form, we have all the fields. Now on submit, we have to send the form values to the server. So for that, let's just open the network tab. So this is food. We'll call the form and add an event listener called submit. And now we should stop the page load after submitting it, and we have created the object, and let's just send them to a endpoint which is food, and we will rename it to food endpoint, and we need to send the data. So the method is going to be what? Post. And what type of data? JSON data. What data are we sending? Form data. And we will be getting the response and send them and display them in the alert. Next thing, once these are done, we should create the method. What method we are sending? We are sending the post method, and who is going to take care of it? Create food method is going to take care of it, and we need to capture food data. So for that we will require name, price, and restaurant field. So this is going to be restaurant ID as we have defined in the model. In the model, just look for name, price, and restaurant ID. And where is the food routes? Food controller, name, price, and restaurant ID. And we need to call the model here. It's model, and then we need to create and pass the argument and save them and send the message as food saved successfully. If everything goes right, we should get the alert message food saved successfully. I think there is an error. It shows mongoose, this spelling in the model. Where is the model? Food model. It's mongoose. It's mongoose. And now your application is ready. Let's just try sending the request to the server. Food name pizza, and the price is 250, and restaurant is UI Monk Asia. Click on save food. We are getting the request 500 because food is not a constructor, and most probably it would be coming from here. Just to be sure whether we are able to properly send pizza, so you can see we are not sending the ID. Instead we are sending what? We are sending the value. So we need to get here, and let's see in the drop down. So the value, you see there's a problem in the value. So in the script tag, so here it's name, it should not be name, it should be ID. Refresh it and let's check, and you see ID, the value has got ID. Let's try sending the value again. 250 rupees from UI Monk Asia. Click on save, and in the network tab, if I click save, we're getting the error. That's okay. And the response is, you should also get the response over here. It is because we are not exporting the module. So module.export. Now let's try again with the same value. Pizza 250 rupees, and the restaurant is UI Monk Asia. Click on save, and you got a message from the server, food created successfully. That means your data is added. Now we need to populate them on this field, on this text field, sorry, on this table. So we need to get the table, an edit button. We need to identify them with food table. In the JavaScript, we have to define the table as now on page load we need to send the fetch request. So display all food data, you need to send the fetch request to the endpoint. And this should be on page load. Also, when I submit it or submit the food information, also the form has to be resetted. And let's see whether we are able to send the fetch request for the food. Console, sorry, not console, you should get into the network tab, food. So we are able to see all food data. That means it is working. In the food controller, we have to call one thing, which is we need to call the model, which is food. Along with that, we know that there is a restaurant ID. Instead of displaying restaurant ID, I'll show you what it gives you without this populate. Now you see we get ID, name, price, and restaurant ID. Restaurant ID is a object ID. We are receiving the object ID. I'm saying when you find restaurant ID in the column, in the answer or the object, display the name, relevant name, and location. How are we going to do that? So with this object ID, it will check in the database and it will find the corresponding name and location details, and it will be displayed. And if I refresh it in the food, you should see restaurant ID now has name and location. Now we have sent them to the as a response. Now we have to get this in the JavaScript. Now it's going to be multiple data, so we need to use for each. And we need to get the table, which is food table body. And we need to concatenate with inner HTML. And what all data that we need, we can get it from here. So we have data called pizza, data dot name. So we have name, we can get the price from the object, and we can get the location, which we can access it with the help of restaurant ID, restaurant ID dot name, and then we can pass the on click, and what we need to send the data. And on page load we should see the added food. And let's add one more food, which is burger. Price is 150, and restaurant, which restaurant to pick from? Bandra. Click on save. Now we see burger is there and pizza is there. Now let's implement the delete food function. We should send the delete food to the fetch API. We would simply say alert, message deleted successfully, and we need to display all the food data. And we have to say to the routes that the delete method should expect name, and we are sending it through parameter, not body, so we need to write code accordingly. So exports delete food, we get the ID, and we are passing the, sorry, here we have written name, right? So we are not sending name, we are sending ID. Request.parameter.id, and then send the response food deleted successfully. Click on burger, you should say food deleted successfully, and it should go. If I refresh it, it's gone. Now let's add burger again, and the price is like 100 rupees, and select the restaurant, click on save food. Now this is how we add many to one to many relationship, which is one restaurant can have many foods. Let's say Coke, 60 rupees, and which is from Asia, which is UI Monk Hub. One UI Monk Hub have many foods. This is how we establish one to many relationship. Now let's focus on the order. So now we have to first fetch these value customer. So as we have fetched the value on the table, we have to do it over here, and then for the restaurant we have to fetch and display the value and ID, and then we have to display all the foods in this section. Let's do that without wasting much time. What we have to do is we need to create a order routes, orders, order routes, and we need to create the folder file order routes.js, and controller as well. So let's first call the express, and then call the router and export the router module.export router, then router.get a simple get request, let's create a controller order controller .js, and we definitely need model. For now we'll just create the folder order model.js. Now in the order routes we need to call the controller, and we need to send the request from the route to the controller, and we need to define this function, exports dot all. We need to send the response sending simple get all order. Now to check whether it's orders, I guess I have named it in the plural format in the middleware, that our MVC is properly connected. Now what else? So let's first set the endpoint in the server, which is already we have done orders, and in the routes here we need to get, first thing we would be getting restaurant names, STURANT / names. This is how we will set the endpoint, and get all restaurant names, and in the controller here we need one thing, which is we need restaurant model, make sure the folder is correct, and we need to fetch, we need what, we need name and we need location. We don't need location, we just need name. And let's just check whether we are able to properly orders slash, so we'll just copy paste the route name, route URL, the request URL. If I hit, you should see we have used get. Okay, and let's make sure that we have used the same function, get all restaurant names. There was a multiple slash, that's why we could not get it. Now you see we are able to get those values. Similarly, we need foods, we are getting ID and name. We need restaurant, we need customer. Similarly, for the customers also we need to customer, customer model. Make sure you have using the proper name, name. Now in this get request we need customer names, Now for the customer name, similarly we have to do the same. Make sure to change the function name, get all customer names. So this is for customer names, and the relevant model is customer. We need just names. Yes. Now let's try with this endpoint, which is customer name. Make sure to not add multiple slashes. Now we are able to get the customer name also. Now we have to use the JavaScript and populate our select tag here. These two, we'll just name it as what do we call, order restaurant select, and then we need order customer select. So we need to give the ID to those select tags. Let's get into HTML and look for, yeah, it's already here, one select with ID. So this is customer and the other one is for the restaurant. Make sure to add the ID properly where it belongs, or else we'll do the same mistake as we have done earlier. We'll add those in this parent div. Cool. Now a fetch request has to send to fetch those two values, or we can create populate order select, a single function that will set two endpoints. So this is for orders endpoint, simple fetch, again customer, a simple fetch. Let's see whether we are able to fetch these two values on page load. To make this work on page load, we have to call this at the end. or else it's just initialized and we never called it. In that case it won't work. Refresh this page and you should see there are multiple names. So this is restaurant, this is customer. Again, this is not, this is for the customer table, but these two are ours. So we are able to get the restaurant name, we are able to get the customer name. Now we have to properly deconstruct them and display them in the select tag. We have called this so dot inner HTML. So this is first option, and this is for the customer. So here select customer. Now it's going to be multiple data, so for each we will just get the value from the HTML without. So this is for restaurant, just pick these value or one of the value and just paste it over here. So here we need what? We need the name. So data, get the individual value, which is data dot, we need name, and then we have to store the value underscore ID. Similarly, we have to do the same for this fetch request, and just change the customer select tag. Refresh it. Where is the order table? Yes, so we have Ramesh and Suresh, and we see all the added restaurant. Let's add one more customer, Nilesh. Email ID nilesh@gmail.com. Phone number, some random number. Click on save, and now Nilesh is not added because on page load we are not calling, sorry, after sending submit we are not so this is for restaurant, this is for customer, we are not calling the function. Let's add one more customer, Rajesh. Email, phone number, save. Once it got saved, you should see Rajesh got added. Now we can select customer. Now we can select the restaurant. Now it's time to fetch all the food and display it one below the other in this place. We need to get the order summary, Control F, order summary, and now we have these items that we have to populate. Cool. Now the same way in this function we need to send one more endpoint, or let's just get into the routes, order routes. We need to set one more endpoint, and this is for food, and order controller get all food names. Now over here we need to call the model for food, then what do we need? So the same way, get all food names, and replace the model name you see we have just missed one thing. Cool. Now we are able to send the food information. We need to catch it on the script tag, from the script tag, just how we have done here. Copy this. We need to send the request. Here in this case it's what do you call, food names, and I hope in the routes I have properly set it, not in the food routes but in the order routes. Food names, yes, and we have matched the end URL. Let's just not add this for now, and let's check whether we are able to fetch all the food. And we saw there is an error, and what error it is? Throw argument handler. Let's just debug. Okay, get all foods, and make sure get all foods are properly named. Yeah, the name was the problem. So on page load we should get another name request. It told of cannot access customer before initialization. So it's just customer because we have named two names twice, and it should be small f. The reason is, you know, capital food and capital food, it's already there. Now you see we are able to see all the so this is foods. Now where is foods? Suresh. Yeah, this is food. Now this food has a restaurant ID, and we need to populate it. Populate restaurant with name. Now next time when we send a request for food, we get the restaurant name also, but I don't think we need restaurant name, because you know, name and price is only displayed. We don't have to work on that. Cool. Now it's time to populate. Get these value and concatenate it. So data dot for each, we need to create a parent div with id orders data. So with this order data we can individually select that div. Now order div dot inner HTML equal to get this whole section and paste it over here. So with this data we can access name, and with this we can give price, and these two we would set it with JavaScript. Okay, we don't need this button, and let's make sure that in the HTML the button is outside the container. Okay, that is a mistake. We should not add this inside this order data. Instead we should save it somewhere. We should not append it over here, but we should append it in this place. I'm sorry, it's my mistake, totally my mistake. Let's just identify them with a ID, which is order data. And we need to replace these values, nothing else. Cut these and get into script tag. We have data dot name, then we have price. If I refresh it, first we need to remove this added value. I think we have not properly closed this div. Yes, whatever we add, you see it got populated. I think price is not getting properly fetched. Maybe it's because in the request we have not mentioned price. I think price also, let's see. Yeah, we got it. We want this function which is to load on every submit. So submit then we have the next submit, then we have another submit, cool. Now just to check, let's try adding one client, gmail.com, click on save, and one customer got saved. Let's remove that. Okay, let's just add first gmail.com, some random phone number value, click on save, and let's see. Vishal got added, you can see. Let's add one more food, a famous hot dog, price is 100, restaurant from C, Churchgate. So you can see hot dog is now added on the foods list. Then if you want customer to add restaurant, UI Monk Hub E, which is England, click on select save restaurant, and you should see UI Monk E. So this is how we populate. Now if I don't want something, alright, now let's start working on the orders schema. So to create, we need to get into model, and inside model we have order model where we will be writing our schema. So to write schema we need mongoose instance package, and order schema. This is how we initialize schema. It's an object. What do we have? We have customer. Here we will be storing customer ID, and we have to refer it to the customer table. That is one thing. Similarly, for the restaurant, Here it should be restaurant ID. Make sure it's small or else it would cause issue. We will be referring to restaurant model, and then we have items. So items is a collection. You can see 2 items are there. So for that we will make this as an array, foods, and it's an array. Inside array it will have multiple food, and here you see it should be, there should be comma. Then we can differentiate with food ID. This is an ID. We'll get the ID, and then what? We need the quantity to be saved. QTY, and then finally we have total amount. That's it. Now we need to export mongoose.model order scheme and module.export. Now your model is ready. Next thing what you have to do is we have to work on submitting the order. So for that I have already created a JavaScript. So now what you see here is these data are getting populated here. These data are populating from this table, and the restaurant drop down is getting populated from this table. Restaurant, this table. And now if I make one order of one pizza and one Coke, you see 250 rupees. And if I click plus, and if I click plus again, you see I have made a purchase of total amount which is 300 rupees, and the order content, the order item that I have purchased is pizza and Coke, and you can see the quantity and the price of each individual product. Once I place order, what happens is I am sending an object. Once I place order, so we have to select these customers first. I'm sending an object, and this object has customer ID, restaurant ID, and then we have food as an array. So inside as we have mentioned in the model, we have food item, we have quantity, and price is optional, and we will be calculating the total amount, or we can send the total amount. I will send the total amount right now. So here your customer, a restaurant, and total amount, which you can get it from this ID. Dot value or inner text, which I have already defined at the top. We don't need this. And now you should send customer name, restaurant, the price that 2 pizza and 1 burger. If I place order, you should see total amount 600 is also sent with the object. Is sent as an object once I click on send. Now we'll do a fetch. Once someone clicks on the button place order, we are sending the fetch request. And that is the post request. The content type is JSON, and we are sending the same object that we are displaying on the console to the server, and we have to set the routes, and the route should be post route, and the URL has to be what? We can simply make this as post route, and uh, create order is a function that is going to take care of it. Exports dot create order, and for now we'll just send message orders, messages ordered successfully created, and from the JavaScript we will simply get that message data dot message, and we'll display it as an alert, not a console. Let's try making an order, and let's see whether we are able to properly send the request to the server and get a response accordingly. So select the customer, select the restaurant, give the order, click on place order, and you see a request is sent with these information like food ID, sorry, customer and restaurant ID. Food is an array of object, food ID, quantity and price, and then we are sending the total amount as well, and as a response we are getting order placed successfully. Now we have to save. So previously it was just a text message, now we have to actually save those. We have to call the order model, now const new order equal to, and make sure we are setting it as an object, because order data equal to what all data that we are getting, which is the first one is, we'll pick it from the routes. Oh no, we'll pick it from the model. We need customer ID, which we can get it from here, restaurant ID, food, and total amount. Now we have to send them as an argument and save it, new order dot save, and this has to be await, and hopefully these data should store our value into the database. Let's check, and once it is saved we want them to display those information in this field. We have to do that as well. Let's just place first order, select the customer, select the restaurant, order, select the food item, order this food item using place order, and you see we are getting an error. Order validation field, food quantity, it says quantity is required. I think we are not sending the quantity, we are sending it as QTY, I guess. Over in the model we are sending it as quantity, food and quantity, but in JavaScript we are sending it as QTY. We'll make it as quantity. Let's try one more time. We have a customer Rajesh, and he is in Churchgate. He ordered 2 pizza and 1 burger and 2 Coke, and this is his total amount. And if I click on place order, you should see the we are sending the request with these parameter, and we got the response saying that order created successfully. Let's check in the database, and now you see these data got saved. We wanted ID, we wanted restaurant, ID of customer, ID of restaurant, and then we have, this is the data that we have sent recently, again food ID and quantity. Now we have to fetch these values and display this in the form of table. Let's do that. We already have get all orders, so get all orders is over here. Now we just need to call the order, and we have to populate it accordingly and send the value. If it is customer name, what all data that we need customer name, that's why we are getting customer name. Then we need restaurant name, then we need name and price, the name, and the quantity QTY, and rest we don't have to worry about it. Let's see what data that we get, because get request, we have to send the get request. Let's see, in the script tag we should send the get request. I think we are not sending the get request. Let's do that. Get all orders, and now we need to set the endpoint, and we'll simply display console.log data. And if I refresh in the network tab, if there is no error, I think there is an error. Require is not defined. Where? Okay, this line got somehow appended. We don't need this. If we get to the top, this line in the network, we should see a request sent in the name of, and now you see we got our orders that is being called. It's in the form of array. We have customer ID, we have restaurant ID, we have foods, we have food ID, and total amount. Now we need to fetch this and display it in the form of table. Also, you can see we have not added it in the console, but what we will do is we'll create a new function. We have tried to display it. You can see it's there, it has come. Now display order data, will create this function. Alright, now I'll make you understand. When we send a fetch request, I am passing the fetch request inside the passing the data, which is a collection of object, into this function, and this function will simply do the same what we have done for all the tables. Like, we have to get the t body and append the received data. Let me show you how we receive data. In the network tab, you'll see the orders that we get is in the form of array. So we are using for each loop for that. That's the reason, for each, and we are getting individual rows. And over here we have customer with name, restaurant ID with name, food ID with name. These are coming because we have used the populate in the controller. So you can see we are finding all, and also if there is customer ID in the output, display the name also. If you find a restaurant ID in the output, display the name also. That's what it is going. And again, if you find food.id in the result, yes, food.id, and give the name also as an output. Now we can, this is the reason why we are able to see the name, not just the ID. If we don't use populate, you'll just see the ID. We don't want that ID to be displayed on the table. Instead, what we want is we want to display the clear names, like who did, in which restaurant the order was placed, and what are the items that it was placed. So I have to display all these. That's the reason I have used populate. Now that's clear. So this is clear. I'm fetching these values and displaying it over here. You can see customer ID dot name, customer ID dot name, then restaurant ID dot name, then foods. Then foods, inside foods we have food ID, inside food ID we have name. Now again you see, this is object, one object, and one object contains another object. So which is, this one order contains another object which is food. So this food is again a collection of objects. So that's why what I'm doing is I'm using map function. So map function will loop through the object, and I want these values which is inside the object to be displayed as HTML. So it's very straightforward. So it just says, it just gets the value, but map is nothing but a for each or of such kind. You will have a collection of object, and you will have to do the manipulation one object at a time. So now I'm doing the manipulation with only this first object. So that's why map.food, and I have access to one object only, and I'm saying if the order is even and odd, add the class blue and purple. So this is just adding class. So you can see the tag class is getting added, class tags, and over here I'm fetching the value. Inside food we have food ID, inside food ID we have name. That's why inside food individual object we have an ID, and inside the ID we have name. So that's how it's getting fetched. I hope the scope of this video is done. If you want, I can just show you one more time by adding. Let's say Vishal is making an order, and the restaurant is C, and if I click, he makes an order of 5 pizza and 3 coke, and if you place order, okay, it's not getting appended because we haven't used this HTML on post request. That's okay. I'll refresh the page. You can see Vishal from Churchgate made these 2 orders and paid 1400. And now the next thing is we have to work on the dashboard API to get our total orders and total earnings, and we'll use which is the most popular food and also total number of customers. And it's time to create the dashboard API. Now what we need is we would create, so first let's create a route. So we'll call this as dashboard, and in the routes folder we can create a new file and we'll call it as dashboard routes.js, and we need to define it in the server. So for that we need to call the file first. We will call this as dashboard routes, and when there is a request for a dashboard, the dashboard routes should call this related route, let's say /route dashboard, should be handled by this route file, which is dashboard route, and we need router here, const express, new express, then we need router module.export router, then we will just simply give the simple route, and here we will get router, a simple get route, and we will not define it in this way. We need to define a controller for that. Create a new dashboard controller.js, and in the dashboard controller, and we have dashboard routes. We will say first we will call the controller, make sure the names are properly linked, and this request should be sent to this controller with the function, let's say get data or get dashboard data, and in the controller we need to export this function, and we should simply send dashboard data. So if I hit, you should get dashboard data. Cool. Now what all things that we need? So we need to do some aggregation function. We have to get the order details. So what we do is we will get the order model, const order model, then we need a customer model, to get total number of customer. Now we need to get the total number of order made. So to get total number of data, it's very straightforward. We need to call the order model, and we need to use the count document function, and simply you can export it this way. So if I enter /dashboard, you should get two values. So I think that we have an error, so to check, you will find in the order model, actually it's not models, it's model. Now you should get, there is 2 total orders and there are 3 customers. So let's see, you can see 2 total orders and 3 customers. Now we need to get the total earnings. And now to get the total earnings, what table do we have to look? So we have the order table, which actually has the total amount. We have to get the sum of this. So to get the sum of this, first we need to use the mongoose aggregation function, and inside the, we call it mongoose aggregation tool. Inside mongoose aggregation tool, we have to group. Since we are not making any relationship with the other table, we will be just using the group, and we are not we would be using group. You can see this is the aggregation. We are choosing the order model, and we are using the aggregation tool of and it's an array. Now you see it's an array, and inside the array you are passing the first object, and the first object can be identified. We are grouping it now. We are grouping, we are not doing any relationship. If we do any relationship, we will be calling it by an ID. So now we are not grouping anything, we are just focusing on only one table, so we need to pass ID as null. The second thing is we need total earning. So to get total earning, we have to use the sum function, and to do sum on which table, and I am saying to do sum on this table, which is total amount, which you can see in the order model we have given as total amount as a column. So total amount, some value should be stored somewhere, and we are storing it inside total earning. Now as I said, it's an array, so we are storing the array in the result variable. We want the first index value, and the first index value has the key, which is total earning, which stores all your total amount information. So that's how we call it. So the reason for question mark is it's ternary operator. If there is no value, then display null. So we don't need this for now, to simplify this. So get the total value, total earning, and display it as a third parameter. Now you see we have the third parameter, which is total earning. Now we need the most popular food. Now to get the most popular food, since we have only 2 data, so which is the most popular for me as of now? Pizza is 3, and this is 1, so that means it's 4, and burger is 2 and burger is 3, so that means it's 5. For my understanding, burger is the top, sorry, most sold, most popular food. So we need to get it from with the MongoDB query. So for that we need to make a relationship with this order table and the food table, because this item that we have that we would be getting is it as an ID. So let's do that. Now we need to understand which product has more quantity, which for product is appearing more and which product is more quantity. To understand, we have to see how it is stored on the database. So we are storing one row, you see this one row, as ID, customer ID, restaurant ID and foods. So if we deal with this food variable with this food key, then we can do the manipulation and get the work done. So to do this, it's an array, so you can see this is an array. We need to first convert it into an object. So we are choosing the order collection. Inside order collection we are choosing the foods array and we are making it as an object. That's the first thing. The second thing is we need to get the individual occurrence. So let's say if burger is 5, burger is appeared 5 times, pizza is appeared 5 times, coke is appeared 5 times, so we have to individually group them. So to group them, these are identified with the help of ID. You can see food ID, not just the food ID. So that's why I'm identifying or grouping them with food ID. And now we need to get the total quantity. To get the total quantity, just like how we have done total earning, we will be creating a key, and that key will choose the column. So the column that we have to choose is quantity. So get the sum. So now we will get the individual bucket. Bucket in the sense, first bucket is burger, second bucket is pizza, third bucket is coke. So these are 3 products available for us. So we will be creating 3 buckets, and each buckets we are saying that how much there in bucket 1, count how much count, like how much number of product are there in bucket 1, how much number of product are there in bucket 2, how much number of product are there in bucket 3. So that's how we are grouping it. When I say bucket 1, bucket 2, we are grouping it by ID. And now we would get them in numbers, like burger has 3, pizza has 2. So I am making them sort. So I want the descending order, I want it to be in the descending order, so that I get only the first value. So that's why limit only first. And once we are done, once we are grouping is done, by this time what we will have is let's say ID1 has 3 quantity, ID2 has 4 quantity. So it will, based on the sorting and descending order, then ID2 will have 2 quantity. Now understand, ID2, we just have ID2, we want to display the food name, we just have ID2 now. So now what I'll do is I'll convert the ID into the actual value to get the relationship. Now this ID which is there is directly related to this food collection, this ID. So that's why I'm saying from food collection pick the key which is this ID, and we have already sorted them and pass that ID. So MongoDB will itself take care of it, we don't have to worry about this. And for ID2 which has 2 quantity, replace the ID2 with the name and use this key to access it. Now this key would be an array, we need to unwind it so that it converts into an object. And once it got converted into object, after sorting on this order table, I'm linking the food table. Now what all data that I want to project, I want the food name, so display food name. So this food, so this is the key, and with this key and this key are same. With this key I am accessing the column name which is name, and then I need the total quantity. When I say 1, it means it is a sum of the previous value. So you can see total quantity, I'm passing the total quantity. Then we are sending the result. So now if you see, you will get 2 values. The first one is total quantity, which is 5, and the food name is burger, which is popular. And if I make another order, and let's say UI Monk is doing a checkout on UI Monk, let's make the pizza as quantity 1 and a burger as quantity 2, pizza as quantity 2, and now this is the total value. Click on place order. Once the order is placed, now the popular product would have changed. Now it's still burger. What we can do is we can order one more pizza. So Vishal has come to do a quantity 5. Click on add, order successfully placed. Now we should see the ID is the popular food is pizza. Now based on this, we need to do the script, call the script now, and we need to replace them. So these are the IDs. Let's create the relevant JavaScript variable. So this is order count. Now simply fetch those value. We'll just make this as dashboard endpoint. Dashboard endpoint, and we will simply get those value and populate it. So let's just first check how does we get those data. Not get all orders, get dashboard data. And you see we got these value. Food name is pizza, we got pizza. Total quantity is 11, that's what we have passed. Total customer is 3, you can see total customer 3. Total earning is 3650, and total order is 4. Cool, our dashboard data is working. I think that's the end of the scope. And if I add one more UI Monk, so I think that's the end of the scope. We'll meet in the next lecture.